sustainable kidney care. So what have we got here? We've got fires, we've got floods. So if you're in this room, you probably are aware of the problems facing the planet as the world is warming. Reason for that is greenhouse gases, which we talk of as carbon dioxide, but there's others as well that are in there. They are the cause of the problem. Just seen the 4 warmest years on record on the news last night. It was saying we've just had the warmest June on record. And that's not great. So we're seeing progressive problems. It's going to keep on progressing from where we are now. The world's got this plan to be carbon zero by 2050, I think, is the world's objective, what it's signed up to. But that means until the point of hitting carbon neutrality, of hitting net zero, these climate changes will continue to progress and the disruption they cause will worsen. We have to hope that by the time we get to that net zero point, the planet is still in a stable place. Because if it isn't, if we've lost so much carbon capture potential that the carbon dioxide levels or greenhouse gas levels keep on going, then we'll be in an irretrievable position. So we really need to start making some changes. How is it manifesting? Well, if you watch the news, you will see lots and lots of signs of this. There'll be floods in Pakistan, leaving hundreds of thousands of people out of work, out of home, having to move around, and survival being the only thing that they can focus on, to the fires across North America, Siberia, Australia, which burns up plants. Plants are things that take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. Hugely disruptive stuff. Shrinking glaciers, rising sea levels. If you watch travel programs, you can't fail to notice the crop failure stories that they bring up in Central America, Middle East, Horn of Africa. And all of those changes make it hard for humans to exist in different parts of the world. And that feeds conflict, causes poverty, promotes migration, which is not only disruptive for the people that live in those parts of the world, but disruptive for all of us. It interferes with the supply chain to the things that we use at home and at work. The thing about us in our comfortable northwestern European existence, this is absolutely starting to impinge on us as well. Even within healthcare, in the last year or two, we've seen emergency departments in London flooded. We've seen IT systems in London overheat to the point that surgery is cancelled. Transplant operations were cancelled in that situation, actually. A couple of weeks ago, I saw Rotherham's ED flooding as well when the rains came after that protracted dry spell. This is absolutely affecting us in the way we work. As healthcare fit in, it's a big part of the problem, a significant part of the problem. So if healthcare globally were a country, it would be the 5th highest emitter of CO2, of greenhouse gases in the world. 2 gigatons of CO2 equivalent pushed out by healthcare business. So the NHS know about that, recognise that, and they have set net zero emissions for themselves. And the idea is to be net zero by 2040 with an 80% reduction in emissions by around about the 2030 sort of mark. Progress has been made, so this works on a 2010 baseline, and we have seen a 30% reduction in the carbon footprint of NHS activity over that time. But that's taking out relatively low-hanging fruit. To get to that proper net zero figure, things are going to get progressively more difficult. And much of what's gone on there has gone on without us necessarily engaging very much with that stuff at the front line. These will be structural things happening higher up in the system. And they are, really, really important things. So where do we fit in as people doing in-centre hemodialysis? Well, it's been studied reasonably carefully, and ICHD emits around 3.5 to 7 tons of CO2 equivalent per person per year. Now, us Westerners are supposed to move ourselves towards a 5-ton CO2 emission annual set of CO2 emissions of around about 5 tons or so. Actually, most of us are above that. But you can see, even at the better end of this spectrum, 3.4 is a substantial increase in the carbon footprint of people receiving this treatment year by year. 24,000 people receiving ICHD in 2020, which means that you come up with 80 to 170,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent related to ICHD. So that's a pretty mind-boggling figure. So sometimes it's helpful to try and put that in perspective. We've got elephants and we've got jumbos here. So anyone know how heavy an African elephant is? 6 tons. That's how heavy they weigh. Now, I've been to a zoo. I reckon most of us here have probably been to a zoo at some point. We've probably looked at an elephant and we've probably thought, that looks big and dense and heavy. Well, that's 6 tons. So what I can't get my head around is 6 tons as a gas. I mean, how much gas does it take to weigh 6 tons? Quite a lot, I think. So that's one thing. So 13,500 African elephants would equate to the amount of CO2 that we push out in the UK doing what we do. Jumbo jets, 412 tons they are. So 200 jumbo jets weight of CO2 emissions comes as a result of what we do. So the choice of these elephants and planes is not accidental, of course, because things carry on. The existence of African elephants is looking decidedly flaky. And equally, we've got a picture there with trees and a jumbo jet on it. And the ongoing coexistence of planes and trees is also uncertain, I think. So that's where we are right now. But if we look at the future, we have got some problems coming up. So this graph shows the expected increase in demand by ICB for in-centre hemo in the years ahead, and particularly in West Yorkshire. We are expecting dramatic growth, an additional 500 or more people needing in-centre hemo by 2032. So quite how we're going to reduce our carbon footprint in that context, I'm not sure. We're going to have to start thinking differently. You can do some maths on those figures, and you can look at the additional cost of ICHD in 5 years and in 10 years, and you look at the additional cost in carbon 5 years and 10 years. 10-year figure, the worst case scenario, which I think is probably the most realistic, that's not a small amount of carbon. That's an additional 4 jumbo jets worth of emissions per year, every year.